afternoon. Great for everyone to be here. And we're grateful for having you here. I'm David Holder, the pastor, founder of New York Covenant Church here in New Rochelle, and just thankful for this opportunity to be here on an historic time in our history of our state and in our country, and glad just to be a part of it and to share with you that we are on your side and that we support all the things that are occurring right now. And I'm excited to see my friend, Senator Cousin, who is who will be our first woman majority leader of the New York State Senate. And excited to meet Tish James, who is obviously an amazing person. And I just found out that she told me, I said, do you know the Beauty Church of the Nazarene in Brooklyn? And she says, yes, I funded their food pantry for years. That's my grandfather's church. He pastored there for about 30 years. So it's a very small world, isn't it? So I'm grateful for her more than she knows. And just very excited to meet her and to be here. And, I want to, of course, recognize our wonderful memory, Norm Branson, who's here with us. Always a great support and a great person, so God bless you. So I'm going to have our great congressman to come, Elliot Engel, if he would come now, and want to welcome him.
Well, thank you, Reverend. This is perfect. We can campaign and pray at the same time. I know God's got to be on our side because the other side is so awful. There's no way God would be affiliated with that side as well. So those of you that don't live around here, welcome to New Rochelle. I was just telling the story how I'm married 38 years, and the very first date I had with my wife, we went to a bar right over here on this street called Chumley's years ago, and then a couple of years later, we got married on the strip in New Rochelle. So New Rochelle's always special, and I know Mayor Bramson has been a long-standing friend of mine for so long. Just a few more days. It's just almost hard to believe, but I really feel good. You know, let me start with the institution I know best, which is the United States Congress. Tish and I were talking about it before. I know when you turn on the TV and you kind of see, they'll predict how many seats the Democrats are going to win in the House at least, and I really think we're going to win 40 to 50 seats. I really do. Which would make me chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, and would make me the lower chair of the Appropriations Committee. So Westchester is going to be really represented there, and we want to thank all of you for doing all the work for all the years, helping us and helping the American people get to understand what's really at stake in this election. You know, every time I hear President Trump, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed on the one hand, and I'm saddened on the other hand. Because, you know, there have been presidents, obviously, I've been in politics a long time. There have been presidents who have become president that I didn't vote for, and I didn't like, and I didn't think they were good. But none of those people did the things that Donald Trump is doing now. And the thing that most aggravates me, and that I take offense to, it's not his positions on which I disagree with most of his positions. It's his attitude by pitting one group against another. It's the rhetoric of a president who is supposed to bind people together. Instead, he uses the rhetoric to drive people apart. It's a lot of the things that come out of his mouth are patently racist. You just take what's happening with this caravan coming to the United States border with Mexico. These are people who are essentially fleeing for their lives, and they have a right to ask for asylum. Doesn't mean they're going to get it, but they have a right. That is not something that we can deny people. And yet the president makes it as if Osama bin Laden is going to be hidden with them, it's going to be a dangerous situation. There's nothing like that really at all. Our country is strong and great, and I really believe that one of the reasons it's strong and great is because of our diversity. People come here from all over the world. They immigrate here from all over the world. And what kind of people emigrate? My grandparents emigrated 100 years ago. What kind of people emigrate? Not lazy people. Lazy people can stay home. But people that come to this country, for many don't speak the language, have to learn a new language, work hard, help them and their families get a better life, and in doing so, they help our country get a better life. They make it good for everyone. And so we should have a president who brings people together, not tears people apart. And I am embarrassed with this president. Now, we're all Democrats. We're not Democrats because there's some magic in that word. We're Democrats because when we look at what the party has done through the years, since I was a little boy and even way before that, every progressive position that helped this country through the years has been the Democratic position. If you take Social Security and you take Medicare and Medicaid and health care and you go down the list, all put forward by the Democratic Party. Republicans were always there to try to stop it. My father, who was a welder, used to say to me that the Democrats were the party of the working people and the Republicans were the party of the rich people. There's nothing wrong with being rich, but it's not so terrible to spread a little of the wealth around to everybody else. It seems to me that the Republicans, with their attempting to prevent people from voting, you take a look at what's happening now in Florida, in Georgia, in other places, they want to stop people from voting because they think that's the only way they can win. And they want to make it so hard for people, particularly in minority communities, to come out and vote, throwing all kinds of obstacles in their path, that they think, well, people will just go home and give up and, they might squeak out a victory, the Republicans, and they're willing to do anything they can. Well, we're not willing to have that. We want everybody to have the right to vote. We want young people to come out to vote. We want to make sure that the principles that we all became active in politics are upheld. And so I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for all the work that you do. I'm running unopposed this time around. So I'll take it every time. And my friends and supporters and people are in other districts trying to capture some seats. And I believe the Brindisi district and the Delgado district, I believe those two are going to serve next to me in the new Congress. And a lot of people have gone up there to do it. Now, at a time when I know that the House is going to flip and become Democratic, we have a second House here in New York, and that's in Albany, in the state Senate in Albany. Now, I was a state assemblyman for 12 years before I ran for Congress, and so I have a knowledge of what goes on in Albany. And I can tell you again, just the way here down in Washington, we have the Republicans trying to stop everything. That's essentially what's happened in Albany with the state Senate being in Republican hands for almost every year of the past 100 years. But that, I really believe, is about to come to an end. And we can be proud that not only will the leadership of the state Senate be good leadership, progressive, and doing the right things and doing the things that need to happen, but we here, again in Westchester, have a little edge in that the person that's going to be the first woman to ever serve as a Senate Majority Leader is right here in Westchester and is a part of us. Now, I happen to know Andrea Stewart-Cousins not only as a fantastic legislator, which is important, as someone who's very smart and knowledgeable and hardworking, which is very important, but I know her as a friend, which to me is most important. I know how she feels about things. I know how important these issues are to her. She works hard. She's intelligent. She gets things done. And she deserves to be the Majority Leader of the Senate. And on Tuesday, we're going to make history
to finally have a woman as the state Senate leader. So, it's my pleasure to bring her up here, and I want to tell you that she and I grew up not that far from each other in the Bronx years ago. So she comes from good stock, let me tell you. And she and I both lived in subsidized housing. That's why we both fight so much for housing, for affordable housing, for housing that people can live in legitimately. So without further ado, it's my honor and pleasure to introduce to you my friend and the next leader of the New York State Senate, Andrea Stewart-Cousins.
So we ready to win? We're going to get that vote out. We're going to make Elliot the chair of foreign relations. We're going to make Nita the chair of appropriations. We're going to take the House. Let's not stop. Let's try and make Schumer the majority leader, can we? Let's try and take the Senate. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's so good to be here. Thank you, Pastor Holder. You know, this church is just one of the activist church. It's a community church. I've come here to so many great events. The doors are always open. And as I said, you know, some people just talk inside and never go outside. And certainly Pastor Holder has been somebody who makes sure that what happens in here in terms of faith and charity and spreading the Word of God also happens outside of these doors. I really appreciate your opening. And letting us be here today to remind people, and I know this is not a group I have to remind to do anything. I mean, this is, you know, preaching to the converted for real. But I'm always happy to be in New Rochelle. I asked the mayor, like, aren't we going to hear from the mayor? Because we're in your house. In your home, rather than Pastor's house, your home. And they were saying, oh, no, he wasn't really wanting to speak just then. And that's kind of how Noam is. He just very quietly does the work that has to be done to make this great city a great city. I'm just so proud to represent New Rochelle and to serve with such wonderful partners in government. And while I'm speaking about partners in government, I see Damon Marr, County Legislator, New Rochelle. And, I just see my good friend, he's another one. You know, this is funny how Westchester breeds these people, right? Everybody just comes in, they just sort of want to stay low, and yet you can't. Mr. County Executive, stand up, George Latimer. Another good friend who has left state government, as the congressman mentioned. He was in the Assembly, George was in the Assembly and in the Senate, and then the people called and he left the Senate, and now he's serving in an incredible way, trying to bring back common sense government that really supports the people, our environment, our economy, our civil rights, our human rights. Thank you very, very much. So I talked about, you know, Elliot told the truth. We're just, you know, Bronx people. I actually lived in Manhattan before I moved to the Bronx. And we both lived in subsidized housing. We both took advantage of public schools because that's what we could do. I always tell people that, you know, when my dad, a decorated war hero, came back, you know, after serving in a segregated army, he wound up, you know, not being able to take advantage of the GI Bill because it didn't apply to black people, and a lot of places didn't care for Jews to be anywhere either. And public housing was the answer to that, and public schools and so on and so forth. So I think we are very, very clear that government has an important role. And now more than ever before, we're being asked to define where we stand when it comes to what government's supposed to do. And because government is what makes America what it is, then it asks the question, what is the America that you believe in and that you support? What are you willing to fight for? That's the question on the ballot on Tuesday. That's the question that's causing the nation to wake up. That's the question that if we do it right, we will answer. Now, the state Senate has been a battleground for a long time. It's been a battleground not because Republicans are so overwhelmingly popular in New York State. It's because things were going on in New York State to create a continued Republican majority in the Senate. The Assembly had been Democrats. The Senate was becoming Democratic because of the demographics. And one of the reasons I now have New Rochelle is because of the gerrymandering. They decided that in order to keep the Republican edge, that they would gerrymander. And so where I started out, when I first ran in 2004, when I ran and won in 2006, I had a rectangular district with only one big city, which was Yonkers. When they had a chance to redistrict, they decided that they couldn't win on the merits, that they had to gerrymander the district. Now you look at my district, it is the smiling profile of an old man with a scraggly beard. His name is Yaskar White Rock Green, because of all of the districts all of the different places I have, and now I have 3 cities. They also, by the way, added a seat. When everyone was trying to make government smaller, they decided they would add a seat because they wanted to hold on to power so badly. And then, even as they saw that power slipping away, they decided, okay, let's get people to come over and be part of us. And we lived with what was called the IDC for 7 years, the Independent Democrats. And I want to thank so many of the people in this room who, after the 2016 election, decided that this could not stand, that New York deserved to be progressive, and that we needed to have representatives who would stick with the team, win or lose, but mostly make sure that we win. And you gave me Alexandra Biaggi. Stand up, Alexandra. So here we go now. We're poised to take over the Senate. The hurdles seem to have been cleared. I will be, yes, making history, we hope. There's all these steps. I, like Elliot, had a primary. We both did real well, right? Thank you all. I won by 81%, so thank you, Monroe. And then we have to net 1 seat. I got to keep everybody I got, just get 1. And I, like Elliot, I've actually put out in the universe that I'd like 40 Democrats.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to say it again, and this time we're not going to laugh. We're going to say yes. 40 Democrats? Yes. All right, yes. And then we are going to change the way New York State is focused, the policies, and the ability to actually serve the people. I'll make history as the first woman ever to lead in the state legislature, and I will also have the opportunity on that day. And I just see 2 of my friends, so let me say hello to the City Council President of Mount Vernon, Lisa Copeland. and the woman that I share neuro with, Senator Shelley Mayer. Thank you all again for sending me her too. Y'all did good. That's why I know we're going to get where we need to go. That's why when I say 40 here, it's just like 40. We're not laughing. That's what it is. But we all talk about, and so many of us in this room, for whatever the reason, we have an opportunity to be the first this or the first that. And, it's always important not only, obviously, to be the first, but to do it in a way that you continue to keep those doors open and that people are able to follow in your path and to stand on your shoulders. And that is the America that, frankly, we're fighting for. So as much of a celebration that we will have on the legislative level, if we do this right, we'll have an opportunity to welcome another first, somebody who is full of fight. Fight. She just can't. I was watching her on Joy Reid this morning. She's like, I'm going to get this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Because as you see on her signs, she is somebody who understands. She is the people's lawyer.
Yes.
She's been a public advocate for the city of New York. She's taken on all the big and the powerful. She's created more legislation than any of the public advocates before her that have designed to, again, bring power back to the people, put it in their hands. She will be a partner for us in the legislature, and I will be serving, hopefully, I say hopefully because my members still have to vote for me, but with Speaker Hastie, who is the Assembly Speaker, another historic figure, and we will be able to work with a lawyer that has integrity, courage, intelligence. She's responsive, she's proactive, she's productive. She is somebody who is going to make us proud as she makes history. And she is my sister on the campaign trail. And she's going to come up and greet us now. And this would be our next Attorney General, Ms. Letitia James.
Appropriate that we hold this event in a church. As most of you know, I am a church lady, and I think it's really appropriate that we hold this rally here today. And I was looking at this sign, making disciples by cultivating relationships, and at a time when we're all under attack, when our rights are being trampled upon, when our democracy is being undermined, at a time when our social fabric, unfortunately, is being torn apart. What we need, obviously, is to circle and hold hands with one another and recognize that we're all in this together. Right. And that is what is so critically important. So I want to thank you, Reverend Holder, for allowing us to host this event. I want to thank, of course, the next chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. Once he gets that gavel, you won't be able to get it out of his hands. That's right. The next majority leader, Senator Andrea Stewart-Cousins. Of course, my friend, she's got so much energy, Senator Shelley Mayer. And then my new BFF, the Senator-to-be, Alexandria Biaggi. My buddy in all things, and he has been truly a champion here in Westchester. He's been by my side. He's done transformative things here in the great county of Westchester. Ladies and gentlemen, the County Executive, George Ryan. And of course, my buddy, my sister, someone who I always call upon, who I talk to, who I cry with, who I pray with, the president of Mount Vernon City Council, Lisa Copeland. Mayor of this great town, this great county, this great city, He's a wonderful man. He's humble. He doesn't want to say a few words, but I think at some point he should come to the microphone, ladies and gentlemen. Mayor Bramson, yes. County Legislator Mark, thank you for being here as well. Thank you for your spirit, and thank you for all that you are doing, representing the interests of New Rochelle. A round of applause to the County Legislator. So, I think I covered everybody. Let me just say 3 days is the countdown. The countdown to building our democracy. A countdown to healing our country. A countdown to bringing everyone together. And a countdown to ensuring that the law is used as in a way to protect vulnerable and marginalized individuals, and to send a message to this president that no one is above the law, and that the law is both a sword and a shield. And at this point in time, it's simple. One, as the next Attorney General, I've got to enforce the law because right now we all know that Washington is basically closed for business. And the laws that are currently in place, federal laws that are currently in place, it's really critically important that they be enforced and that individuals be protected. Two, we've got to make sure that we fight back against these regressive policies that hurt New Yorkers. Policies such as, again, hurting our natural resources, protecting our natural resources, our water and our air, protecting and reforming the criminal justice system at a time when we are seeing too many people of color, unfortunately, in the criminal justice system, fighting back against hate. When a man full of hate storms into a place of worship and opens fire on a group of Jewish people who were simply gathered together to pray, we are painfully reminded of what's at stake. It was an honor and a privilege last night to attend Shabbat services with some of my friends in Manhattan, and to come together as one, and to recognize that hate will not be tolerated in our state, and that we're all part of one human family and all of God's people. When a man full of hate tries to harm our leaders and news organization and incites a public fear by sending explosive devices, we are painfully reminded of what's at stake. When a man full of hate opens fire and kills black people in the store in Kentucky and trying to enter a black church, we are painfully reminded of what's at stake. And today in my beloved Brooklyn, there was a synagogue in Prospect Heights, in a district that I formerly represented, where an individual unfortunately engaged in some graffiti and wrote some anti-Semitic remarks, and the African burial ground in downtown Manhattan, some more hateful comments were spewed upon the African burial ground, which is a sacred place. So what's at stake? Everything is at stake. And this hate, unfortunately, this anti-immigrant rhetoric is nothing more than the president feeding red meat to his base to energize them. It has nothing to do with an immigration policy or trying to fix an immigration policy, which is in desperate need of fixing. It's really all about energizing a base to come out and vote, and to use these individuals in a caravan that he refers to as the caravan, who are coming to our country to seek freedom, who are escaping violence. It's nothing more than politics or politricks, and it's really unconscionable to describe mostly women and children who are fleeing these countries, Latin America. We obviously can do better. And as the Congress member said, we are strong because of our immigration policy and because of the strength of our diversity. And sadly, this is just the beginning of what is at stake in this country and in this state. And here in this room, we must know that we've got the power to elicit the change we must see in this country. It's a great metaphor when you see the changing of the leaves. We recognize that a new season is coming, and we are about to enter into a new season of change. And so it's real critically important that we all understand that. And we all have to understand that the power lies in their hands. You know, everyone talks about government like it's a foreign power. The reality is that government is you, all of you, not elected officials, but you. You represent government. It's also important to understand that elected officials, the Attorney General, the county legislator, the executive, they really are answerable to you. And you can put them in place and you can take them out of office. You can build them up and you can take them down. And so individuals who serve, who are in public service, need to understand that they should be in the business of serving and not serving themselves. And so as the next Attorney General, we've got to take on corruption as well. It's unfortunate that 31 elected officials have either been convicted, indicted, or disciplined in the state of New York. We've got to do better than that. Too many people have their hands in the cookie jar. And it's really critically important that we provide and we restore public confidence and public integrity in government. And individuals have to wake up, as I do each and every day, with the fire in my belly on how I can how I can help someone, how I can transform a life. I entered into public service because it made a big difference in my life. And so I live each and every day, again, with this notion of how can I improve the life of someone? How can I improve the life of someone? How can I use government to transform a life? And one way that we can use government to transform a life is we've got to protect the access to affordable health care in our state and in our country. And we've got to guard against New Yorkers. We've got to protect New Yorkers with pre-existing conditions. And it's so ironic that Republicans are now running on this notion that somehow they want the same thing, when they're actually, all that they are doing is marketing junk plans, which unfortunately do not help individuals with pre-existing conditions. We also have to protect a woman's right to choose, because it's my body and my choice. My body and my choice. And so I will look forward to working with attorney generals all across this nation as we stand at a vanguard, as a wall of protection against these regressive policies coming from Washington, D.C. And the attorney generals all across this nation have been the firmest pillar of our democracy, challenging this administration at every level, challenging him and his policies, which unfortunately that are antithetical to everything that I believe in and all of our values and our democracy. And so I will never waver in my commitment to protecting our most basic rights and always moving New York forward and not backwards. The senators talked about our dark past and our painful past, and we cannot go backwards. We can only go forward, and providing again and expanding the middle class. And we've got to be reminded of all of those great leaders such as FDR, which created the New Deal and provided for individuals in this country and built the middle class. At a time when individuals were struggling, he rebuilt this country, and he did it with the power of government. And there are pockets all across this state that are struggling right now. There are so many individuals right now who are suffering in our economy, who are seeking unemployment. And what we need to do is make sure, that our government is in the business of addressing the needs of New Yorkers and addressing the needs of New Yorkers who are struggling right now. And what we do not need are individuals who are going to give simple answers like our president, and who are going to appeal to individuals who basically believe that we should be divided. We are more divided now than we've ever been in our country, and it has not worked and it will not work. What works is when we are all together, united, collectively together. And so I look forward to working with the next majority leader, Andrea Stewart-Cousins. I look forward to working with George Latimer. I look forward to working with the mayor. I look forward to working with all of the county legislators and all the members of the state senate. We can and must change the trajectory of this country and of this state. And it starts with our vote. And so when you come out in 3 days, because this is the countdown, not only must you vote, but you must bring at least 10 to 20 of your friends or your family members out to vote. And we have to vote like Congressmember Lewis said recently. We've got to vote like we've never voted before, because everything right now is at stake. All that we believe in is at stake. We've got to take back our country, and we've got to spread the message of love and acceptance, because hate is too big of a burden to carry. And so it's really critically important that all of us understand that you've got a duty and responsibility, and we will not allow anyone to turn us back. And if in fact there are some shenanigans at the poll, I need all of you, one, to demand that you get a ballot. Two, go to your board of elections. There will be judges in place where you can go see a judge and you can get back that right to vote. You need to exercise that right. And no matter how long the line is, bring a good book, bring your telephone, bring whatever gadget you have, bring some comfortable shoes, bring a chair, but vote. 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 And when you do, the state will be as blue as the ocean. And we will be proud of our government. And once again, New York State will be that progressive state leading this country forward. And as the next Attorney General of the state of New York, I look forward to waking up each and every day with a smile on my face, going into that office, suing somebody, and then going home. God bless you and thank you.
Amen, somebody. That was wonderful, just wonderful. I'm going to ask our wonderful county executive to come, George Lattimore. Won't you welcome him?
I learned a long time ago, when you go to a political event and they're honoring somebody, you focus on the person that you're honoring. So when it's due time to honor the new state Senate Majority Leader, Andrea Stewart-Cousins, I'm going to talk about her time as a teacher and working from Verizon, and what was the successor or predecessor to Verizon, and what she did in the county legislature. When it's time to honor Elliot Engel, we'll talk about the brave move that he made to run for the Congress when nobody thought he had a chance. Or when it's time to honor Alessandra Biaggi, the brave move that she made to run in what was an impossible race. Today is about Tish James. And I'm going to offer a very simple reality for you to think about, because you have to decide how much time in the next 72 hours you want to put into this effort, and how much it matters to you and to me that we put this time and effort in. And particularly for this reason. We're each given talents and abilities of some sort. They're all different talents. And I want you to make a comparison as to what your choice is for New York Attorney General. You look at two individuals, both lawyers. You have to be a lawyer to be an Attorney General, so I'm out of the loop, which is good for you. You have two candidates, both African American. And somebody might say in the African American community, we win either way. We get a person of color for the first time to serve in this position. Isn't that a good thing? Well, you have to know the individuals and what they did with the talent they're given, because there's no question that God gives us talents. So one candidate goes to law school, goes to Harvard. Noam Bramson went to Harvard. Excellent school, tough school to get into, tough school to do well. He goes on to Harvard Law School. Our candidate goes to Lehman College. And I was down the road at Fordham. I'm a few years ahead of her. But let me tell you, you're on a D train when you're going to Lehman and you're going to Fordham, you know? You're not sitting in a dorm in Cambridge. No offense to those who went there. She goes to Lehman College. Now, she goes on to law school. Where does she go? She goes to Howard in Washington, D.C., a college that's known for helping get young African-American people the education they make to make a contribution. Now, here's the big decision you make. You've got a law degree in your hands. You passed the bar. What do you do with it? The other guy goes into bankruptcy law. It's a perfectly legitimate career path. And he makes a lot of money, because there's a lot of wealthy people that have to go through bankruptcy. And when he makes that kind of money, he now has the money and he has the contacts and the relationships in the legal market to raise a heck of a lot of money and run for Attorney General. But our candidate, Tish James, she didn't do that. She became a public defender. A public defender. People without money, people without power, and she took her legal ability and skill to defend them in situations that you or I could be in, great stressful situations. She did staff work in Albany. And since, you know, some of us have been in Albany, sometimes staffers, you know, are treated like, you know, you're in a meat grinder. You're jumping around doing things late at night. The assemblymen and the senators are out having dinner at Jack's. It's the staff person working late at night. Tell me I'm not lying. I'm telling the truth when you're a staffer in Albany. Then she comes back home. My other friend's down there, you know, he's on Wall Street, Park Avenue. He's making a lot of money doing what he's doing in law. It's not illegal. But she goes back to her home neighborhoods in Brooklyn. Neighborhoods like Bedford-Stuyvesant, you know, like Prospect Park, places where people are in need, and she stands up as a working families party candidate against the mainstream and becomes a city councilwoman to speak truth to power. She doesn't remember this, but I was with her on the steps of City Hall when she was a main speaker on an issue that involved tenants' rights. And she spoke with energy and power. And I turned to the person who invited me down, Michael McKee, and I said, "Who is that woman?" And he said, "Make a note of her name. You're going to hear it again. Here's that day to get where we hear her name." And she goes to the city council and she stands up and she fights for everyday people. She could have taken that skill that God gave her, that she honed, and that she got the law degree from Howard, and she could have said, "I could be a corporate lawyer." They'd have had her in one of those white shoe law firms in a minute, and she'd be making a ton of dough, but she didn't do that. And then she went on to become New York public advocate. Now, you try winning a citywide race in New York City. New York City is a state unto itself. Those of us who've won, you know, we've all won nice little races and districts. But Tish had to go all over New York City, from Wakefield, right across the street from where I grew up in the south side of Mount Vernon, all the way out to Howard Beach, and she went out and she made a case, and she got elected to a citywide position in the city of New York, and as public advocate, by definition, who she was and what the job was, she spoke up for people that needed assistance and needed help, and she did it boldly, and she did it brilliantly. Now the question is, who do you want to put in the position of State Attorney General? Do you want to put somebody in who took their skill and made a ton of money doing it? Or do you want to take somebody who took their skill and put it into the people? Not just for this election, not just saying the words, "I'll fight for you," now that you have all that money in the bank. Who did it with no money in the bank and going through step by step by step by step. Every constituent that walked into her council office, every person that came to her in her position as a public advocate, that she had the human heart to fight for them. Who do you think will make the better state attorney general? Who do you think will stand up for us better? The guy who says he's going to do it now that he's done very well for himself. I'm not trying to knock him per se, but I'm raising Tish James up. This is not just a candidacy. This is a person who is built to be our public defender at the statewide level. Now, my closing analogy has to do with sports, and I apologize to every woman in the audience. I know you're sick of hearing men talk sports analogies. For the handful of men in the room, hopefully you'll be able to really, Matt, I hope you can relate to this. If you've ever played, and I played touch football, I didn't have the skill to play real football. When you play touch football, and you're covering this guy on this side of the field, and there's somebody covering that guy on that side of the field, when he slips, that receiver is wide open. And the quarterback sees that, and you have to leave your man to try to catch that guy, because he's now uncovered, and he's ready to get a touchdown right on you. You know what I'm saying? Anybody want to agree? Give me an amen. When used to be a church. Give me an amen. This also used to be W.T. Grant. I used to come with my mom. We'd run up and down the stairs when you could go downstairs. I'm old enough to remember that. So when you look at that receiver and he's open, you're on the other side, so you got to run over him. You got to cover him quick. The ball's in the air, because you are the last source to stop him from scoring if that's the reception. Why is that important? Because down in Washington, we don't know what's going to happen in Washington, D.C. We hope we're going to have a majority in the House. We pray, we hope we have a majority in the U.S. Senate, and that Bob Mueller's probe will continue and will be effective. But just in case there's a slip, there's one last person who can intercept that receiver before touchdown by authoring lawsuits in the state of New York courts, where all of these guys, Michael Cohen, the Trump son, all that stuff happened in New York. The Trump Tower meeting, that happened in New York. Who has the relevance to be able to argue for this and fight for this? The New York State Attorney General. The New York State Attorney General is the last person between that wide receiver and a touchdown. Now, who do you want to be that last person? I want it to be Tish James. I want it to be the woman in central Brooklyn who fought for people. I wanted to be the girl who went to Lehman College and Howard Law School and had to struggle and work her way through, not somebody who got the free scholarship and did it automatically. That's why I want Tish James. And that's why, over the next 72 hours, we got to do whatever's necessary. Yes. So you sit to yourself saying, I don't want to make this phone call. I've been there. We've been there. We don't want to make that next phone call. We're tired of making phone calls. We're tired of guys hanging up on us. Ringing that doorbell and nobody's home and you jump to the next place and, you know, Sue Tazi and I and Gene Tazi have been through Sycamore Park. How many times we did that? Then when the door opens, you get negativity because we're in Sycamore Park. You know, it's not our neighborhood. But you got to do it for the next 72 hours because you're going to put Tish James as State Attorney General. That's why you do it.
Tish is the candidate. And when you go to a door, you know, we can make all these arguments about our fights at the federal level, and they are very, very relevant to the Attorney General. But I spent 12 years in the Attorney General's office. I did every job the Attorney General's office does. I ran the Westchester office. And you know what the Westchester office does for the people at the door? When you have a problem, when a car dealer won't return the deposit you made and you canceled, who's going to get back for you? The Attorney General's office Consumer Division. It matters to the person at the door. When you are a person whose rent, under rent stabilization, goes up and it shouldn't have, or they don't have heat and they were supposed to provide it, who are you going to call? The Attorney General's office picks up the phone, calls the landlord, and gets that resolved. For people at the door, not everyone understands the federal implications of the Attorney General's office, but what they do understand is in their life, how can this office help them? And I will tell you, from being in the Civil Rights Bureau, where people could call, no one wanted to look at their case, racial steering in Westchester, in some parts of Eastchester and New Rochelle and other parts of the community, including Yonkers, where realtors were not allowing African Americans to go and see houses that they were eligible to buy. Where do they go? Nobody wanted to hear from them. The Attorney General's Civil Rights Bureau investigates and then brings the cases and gets relief and changes behavior. If you want to talk about environmental protection, who brings the major cases in New York State? Nothing against our governor. We're endorsing him. It's great. He takes credit for it. But the Attorney General's office is the one that investigates with their high-quality environmental investigators and brings the cases, that changes the result, that makes these companies like Con Ed pay millions of dollars back for the damages that they cause to our rivers and our sound. The Attorney General's office is on the front line for the person at the door. If they're not motivated by fighting back against Trump, they are motivated by the deposit they don't get returned, by the fraud that's perpetrated on them when they get something in the mail, by their complaint about civil rights, by their complaint about an investor that bilked them out of money, from their complaint about a co-op which was offered without permission by the Attorney General's office. The Attorney General's office, we don't always talk about it, but it touches the lives of individual people in the most proactive way. I was honored to serve under Attorney General Bob Abels for 12 years, who had incredible courage to take on the political tide at the time, to stand up for reproductive health care when, frankly, not a lot of our friends were doing it. He did. I was involved in some of the most major cases that went all the way to the United States Supreme Court, weighing in on the right to choice. The Attorney General's office is the opportunity for individual people who do not have a lawyer, who cannot afford a lawyer, who have a case that matters to more than one person, to have their voice heard and to have a quality lawyer represent them, representing the people. And that's why when you go to that door, you got to make sure they understand. We are talking about someone who is going to be there for them, who is going to hear them
and give them the respect as an attorney that they deserve. And so I know Tish, and she understands this office. She served there. She understands what people, regular, non-political people, want out of elected office. They want someone who listens, who respects, who stands up for them, who's not afraid of the powers that be, and that is Tish James. So I know from personal experience, there is no one who could be a better Attorney General than our next Attorney General, Tish James.
But mainly because we've all come together today to ensure, to really make possible the first woman Attorney General, Black woman Attorney General in the state of New York, to make history in this state. I want to talk a little bit about something I think Tish actually doesn't even know about yet, because I don't think I've shared this story with you. So I am also an attorney, and I did a program called New Leaders Council. And New Leaders Council is a progressive entrepreneurship training basically for young progressive leaders in this country. There are chapters across this entire state, and one of the most popular chapters is the one right here, well, not right here, but right in New York City. And the year that I graduated from that program in 2015, right before I joined the Clinton campaign, Tish James came to speak to our group. Now, there is a saying I know, which is that as a woman, or as, honestly, quite frankly, any one of us, when you look up at the leaders around you, you really believe that you can be in that leadership position if someone looks like you, if they sound like you, if they act like you. And Tish James was the woman standing there before my class in 2015, telling all of us that it was not only possible to be a leader, but that we should go for it, that progressive values were worth fighting for. Excuse me. That it was possible to make a state and a city as progressive as New York, really across this entire country. And so I am grateful that you came to speak to my class in 2015, because you inspired me from that moment, not only to join the Clinton campaign, but to use my law degree for good. And that is why we're here for you today, to make sure that your law degree goes to the top of our government to protect all of us. So one of the things I think that I love talking about the most, and I've spoken about it as often as I possibly can, is emotional intelligence. Not only do we need individuals who are going to bring with them the policy background and the relationships and the understanding of what a public servant does, but we need somebody who has the emotional intelligence and the empathy to actually lead, not just from the head, but from the heart. And that is exactly what Tish James will bring as Attorney General in the state of New York. So I am incredibly honored to stand here before you today. I think another story I'd like to share is recently. So I was at an event for Planned Parenthood in New York City. And we were talking about, who had won in the primary on the 13th of September and how excited we all were. And each candidate went one by one to share their story of how important it was for Planned Parenthood to have gotten involved in a race at a time that it really wasn't politically popular to do that. And then Tish came up to speak. And she spoke about how over the years as she's been a public servant, that young women have come to her to share different types of difficulties as it relates to women's health, and how they would say to her, Tish, I don't know what to do, I'm pregnant, or I don't know what to do, I don't know if I should get an abortion or not, I don't know where to go, I don't know where to turn. And that stuck with me for a few reasons, but it stuck with me mainly because it reminded me that when we stand here and we say, elect more women, it's so important to have women in elected office, it's not just because we want to make sure that there's parity in government, but we want to make sure that there are women in government who are going to be able to keep their door open for issues like that maybe young women who are working in government might not be comfortable sharing with a male leader or a male colleague. And so this is just, I think, a few of the really exciting reasons why we need to make sure that Tish James is the next Attorney General from the state of New York. Now, one last thing I just want to say is that we've talked a lot today about transformation and how we actually elevate our state and how we make sure that we move forward. And I really do think that we are in an incredible moment, not only to get new people to come out to vote, but to move away from transactional politics into transformational politics by integrating emotional intelligence with policy to make sure that not only women's health is protected, that immigrants are protected, to make sure that our government actually works for everyone, to make sure that we close loopholes in our rent laws in New York State so that people can actually stay in their homes, to make sure that our federal government does not penetrate a place like New York in a negative way. Our state government is the first line of defense for all of us, and we want to make sure that the people who are in those roles protecting us are as strong as possible, and that is exactly why I am honored, excited. I am looking forward to after November 6th at 9 p.m. when we can say that Tish James is our next Attorney General for the state.
My dear friend Andre Stewart Cousins and the next majority leader of the New York State Senate, I'm not shy about the microphone. You know, you can't be in this business if you're shy about the microphone. But it has been my experience that once you've heard from 8 politicians, you probably don't need to hear from a 9th. But if the next Attorney General of the state of New York is going to publicly call me out and say I should come up to the microphone, then far be it from me to say no. So, and then, by the way, I'm feeling like I'm kind of a little bit in a hole here because the county executive, I think he probably had to go to another event, but then he comes after me for my college attendance, and I feel like I've kind of got the worst of all worlds because I've combined the out-of-touch elitism of the Ivy League with the very modest incomes of the public sector. So that's me. Do not take my example, whatever you do, the young people in this room. So. Let me say this, because I am 8th or 9th or something like that, I will at least be relatively brief, but speak from the heart. For all of the traditional reasons, it is important for us to be here. We've got terrific candidates who have spectacular records, who are deeply committed to public service, who are going to adopt and act upon progressive values, who are superior in every way to their opponents, and when they are elected, they're going to make a difference in the lives of people in this community, throughout New York State, and throughout America. That is ample reason for us to be here, to work hard, to cast our votes, to reach out to our neighbors, to do all the things that we do in these elections. All of those normal standards. And yet, this is not a normal time. We all recognize that. You know, Elliot said a moment ago, we hope we're going to win 40 seats, maybe more, in the House of Representatives. The polls look good, but I was chatting with a few friends from Indivisible earlier, and we were all saying we're experiencing a little PTSD from 2016. Because we remember what it was like to wake up that next morning. I mean, I think half the country was literally going through clinical depression for a month because you feel like you don't recognize the nation you thought you knew. And then you reflect on it a little bit more and you realize that the story of this country has always been this dialogue between our lighter and our darker impulses. You know, this is the nation that rescued the world from Nazism and communism. It's the nation that sent the first man to the moon. It's the nation that could put forth as the leader of the free world a man like Barack Obama and his incredible family, representative of so much that is good in humanity. It is the nation that created international institutions that have lifted hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. We have a commitment to the world as a whole. And it's also the country that defined millions of us as 3/5 of a human being, that built a lot of its wealth on bondage. The nation of the KKK, the nation of Joe McCarthy, the nation of cross burnings, the nation of the semi-sanitized lineal descendants of all of those features, that you see today in Breitbart and Fox News and all of these other incredibly negative, divisive voices. So it's always been this dialogue between the two, and right now that darker side of America is ascending. And what we have an opportunity to do on Tuesday is demonstrate that the better America is alive and well, and that better America is going to win the future. Thank you all very much.
So batting 10th, is there a 10th? Anyway. But seriously, after some of these speakers, I feel like I've been called up from AA minor league team to the big leagues. And really, I'm so proud to be a Democrat. Don't we have great candidates and public officials? And will I stop with the sports metaphors? No, I won't. I won't. We're in a marathon. The New York Marathon is almost, 2018 marathon's almost over. I mean, the real marathon hasn't started, but it'll start and finish tomorrow. Our marathon we've been running it since last year. And I hope we all have our sneakers on today. And I'm not going to talk a lot longer because I have a date with several dozen or 100 doors between now and Tuesday. I've been told to be up here and be the cheerleader for knocking on doors. I don't think everybody needs that here, although, you know, if you're in that last couple of miles of the marathon, yes, you do need, let's go. Let's go do it. Let's get in our sneakers, our smiles. That was the first thing I learned about going door to door. You have to have a smiling face when that door opens, and keep on smiling, whatever they say. Whatever they say, we're ready for it. We don't get in arguments. We find out who our people are. We tell them to get out in November. Those other people, we tell them, make sure you get out in December. So seriously, I'm late to get going. So let's get out there, go fight, win.
We are closing because we know we all have a lot of canvassing and other things to do. Can the organizers please just stand up? Woo! So we have Margaret Bradbury from Indivisible Rochelle, Liz Massey from Progressive Women of Pelham and Progressive Women of New York. Indivisible Latino is represented here, and the Westchester Black Political Conference. So we are just hoping that we are coalition builders. And we pooled our resources together to really reach out to the community, to get more people involved in getting out the vote. We will be canvassing after this event, and we invite everyone who is a first-time canvasser, never phone back. I just want to tell you, I've never done any of this before 8 months ago. So we just want to encourage more people to get involved with the process of electing representatives that will represent our interests. So please join us over there. We'll be, dividing off into teams. And also make sure you sign in so we can follow up with more events for you. Thank you, everyone. Go fight, win. Our government, we the people.
Hi, my name is Margaret, and I'm going to get us sorted out for canvassing. So if you want to canvass, and we're going to canvass in New Rochelle, come and meet me over this table on the side here. Well, they just got to, anyone that's canvassing needs to come over here. Right. And before anybody leaves, if they're not canvassing, please grab a Tish James lawn sign that's by the door, or come over here and see us here.
Just for 1 second. Yeah, just stand behind the camera. You think it out well? Huh? It out well? Oh yeah, everything worked out.